Hello, David. Thanks for coming. This is W0CIA. First name is David. And I'm with NI0K, John. We're both located up in northern Minnesota. I got a surprise in the mail one day, email of course, and it said, you're invited to a party. I didn't pay that much attention to it, and I went back and looked at it again and it said, you're invited to an antenna party. Whoa, new ball game.
We're taking the antenna from an 80-foot tower down and replacing it with a different Yagi, one for 20 and 40 instead of 20 through 10. And the one from the 80-foot tower that we're taking down will go at 50 feet.
John, I don't know what this means. Antenna party. I've been a ham for a few years, but I've never been to an antenna party. What is this all about? I don't understand.
Oh, great question, David. Hams have antenna parties, and they're a good corollary to the old days when a bunch of farmers would get together and have a barn raising party. So hams have antenna parties. They put up antennas, or towers, or both. So that's what the antenna party is all about. You get the guys together, and some people watch, some people participate, some people supervise, and it's all in fun and to get a project done.
Well, and the word antenna indicates there's something to do with an antenna, and the word party, at least in my mind, at my age, means food. Is there some kind of food to help everybody out when you're doing this?
Well, if it's a long process to get the project done, it will involve food. And sometimes when the project is done, it involves 807s.
807. What does that mean?
Well, that's an old term that hams used. An 807 is a vacuum tube. It's quite large and shaped like a beer bottle.
Gary, what are you cooking?
I'm cooking bratwurst.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's two kinds of meat there. What's the?
These are two different brands. This is the Stittsworth and this is a generic brand.
Okay.
Okay, well, you want to just grab the bratwurst and go to get a bun and
Yeah, we're going to eat in the garage.
yeah. So just put a.
So an 807 or a cold 807 is a cold beer.
No, I've never heard this. Oh, would you know it? Hang on here. Well, you're having a party, and I'm going to come to it, but I'm not sure what's expected of me. What's going to happen? Why are you having an antenna party? Are you putting up an antenna, or taking one down, or both, or why is this get-together happening?
Well, in my case, the project was to remove a 5-band, 24-foot long HF Yagi from the top of an 80-foot tower, increase the guide system at the top, redo all of the feed lines, and then put up a 2-band Yagi with the same length boom, but covering 20 meters and 40 meters instead of 20 through 10. The new antenna, the longest element, is 42 feet long. As I mentioned, that tower is guide, plus there were buildings in the way and trees. So in order to accomplish this safely, I rented a boom lift. Well, it's kind of like a giant bucket truck. And the operator goes up on the boom in the basket and removes the existing antenna, set it on the top of the bucket and lower it down to the ground. Then the new antenna goes on top of the bucket and goes up to the top of the tower and gets bolted to the mast. And of course, all of the feed lines going down to the tower had to be dressed appropriately. And then the antenna we took down, we took to the other side of the yard and put it on top of a 50-foot tower. All that was done with the bucket lift.
Now, when you're up there with the bucket, trying to get this antenna up there, did you have to modify the beam, take a couple of elements on to get past the trees, branches, or guy wires? With the guy wires in the way to get this antenna off one tower and a new one put on the other tower, how'd you get it up without being tangled up?
It was actually a big problem. No one in the crew had done this type of job before. So we had to learn while we were working. And yes, we did take elements off, not only to clear the guy wires, the tower and the trees, but also the bucket. I should say the boom lift. The elements would, that if all of them were on, they would be tangled up not only in the guy wires, the tower and the trees, but also the bucket. So we, the operator at the top, he took the elements off. The boom truck that we rented goes actually to 86 feet. And the antenna was at 80 feet, and he could position the bucket right where he had to work with no problem at all. The only exception to that was when he needed to reach the elements on the far side of the boom of the antenna. And in order to accomplish that, I simply went into the ham shack and turned the rotor so that the antenna was facing 180 degrees, and then the elements were right above his head.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the new antenna you have, what is it? What's the brand? What's the make? Tell me about it. I know nothing.
Okay, well, let me tell you about the antenna we took down.
Okay.
First, it's a high gain TH11. It has 11 elements. It covers 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10 meters. The boom is 24 feet long, and the antenna weighs 86 pounds. And we took that one down and installed an antenna. It's made by JK Antennas. It is the JK 2040 Falcon. It's an interlaced antenna, covers two bands, and by interlaced, it's like two separate antennas on the same boom. There are two separate feed lines, and the engineering and the design of the antenna allows for all 6 elements to be on the boom without interacting with each other. There are 4 elements on 20 and 2 elements on 40. And there are loading coils in the 40 meter elements to reduce the length of the elements from approximately 63 feet or 64 feet down to only 42.
Now, your party people that came, I shouldn't call them party people, the other hams that came to help out, what was their function? I mean, you were there doing everything, but you had several people at the site, and did each one have a certain function, or did you just got together and lifted as necessary and moved things around?
Depended what part of the project we were working on. We had to repair a feed line, actually make a new feed line, coax feed line. And one of the fellows took a piece of coax and installed connectors on that. Other people were working on guy wires, and then as we raised the antenna, it was a team effort. We had to actually pick up the antenna by hand and move it from one part of the yard to the bucket lift and set it on there. Now the new antenna that we put up weighs about 140 pounds. So there were there were four of us that picked up the antenna. And obviously, I didn't have anybody that could lift the whole 140 pounds, all of us being over the age of 50, maybe 60. So, yeah, it was a team effort. And like I say, depending upon the different part of the project, different people did different things.
Okay, that's why you had, and then again, the word party, because you had so many people, did this take all day, half a day? How long did it take?
Well, that was a tremendous learning experience, David. I had thought less than a day, maybe a little more than a half a day. We spent 2 days with the boom lift, and then actually part of a third day to resolve a technical problem at the top of the tower. So it took really a long time. The first day was quite windy and light rain. Temperature was around 40 degrees. It was cold. And at the 80-foot level, the gusting winds made the job very difficult for the man at the top. But he has, in his work experience, not done amateur antennas or tower work, but he's done welding at heights up to almost 200 feet. So he's quite experienced at working in a boom lift.
This project sounds like it starts out small and then gets really big. Now,
hit the tree
when you put the new
clear.
beam on your 80-foot tower, is this going to change your signal strength because of this type of
On the
design?
left.
Why did you go to it? Why was it necessary, or why did you desire
Nope.
to put this
Okay,
antenna
all
up
clear.
and move the other one to a different tower?
Kind of a complicated answer. Many factors influenced the final design. I really wanted a 40-meter beam to support my activities on the air. I do DXing and contesting, and I wanted a bigger signal on 40 meters than a simple 40-meter dipole or vertical would give me. Now, the existing 80-foot tower is a Roam 25G, which is a relatively light-duty tower, and it's not really strong enough to support the antenna that I had on there, the TH11, and a 40-meter beam. Therefore, I decided to erect another tower to spread the load between two different towers. The other factor is the height above ground, the optimum height above ground for different frequencies is different heights. There has been a study done about the optimum angle of radiation for each different band from different parts of the country. And a computer simulation program or modeling program is available. It's called High Frequency Terrain Analysis. And after inputting your location, it will tell you how high your antenna needs to be for a specific radiation angle, both arriving signals and transmitted signals. As you know, signals that come from not ground wave but farther away through shortwave reflect off of the ionosphere. Actually, technically it's refracted. And because of the number of hops and the angle that it's refracted at, the signal will come in at a different height above the horizon. And that's what we mean by radiation angle.
Now, do you have to know your lat long to enter this equation and be part of this, knowing what height it is?
Yes.
So there's a chart somewhere, if you put your lat long in, it'll tell you what height you want to have your beam at that location?
Yes, and we can insert a slide showing the graph, and it'll give you some sort of an idea if you look at it for a little while, what the different arrival angles are. And the radiation pattern of the antenna. Now, as you raise and lower an antenna for a particular band, the antenna interacts with the ground. The signal not only is, when it goes out, it not only goes straight out from the antenna, but some of it is reflected from the ground. And then at the ionosphere, those two signals combine or detract, they add or subtract from each other. And that gives a vertical radiation angle. And there are lobes. Some of them are quite strong, some of them are nulls in that pattern. So if, for example, most of the DX coming in is at, just say, 15 degrees above the horizon, you obviously do not want a null in your transmitted signal at 15 degrees. You want a peak lobe of the signal going out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but now how do you make it peak?
That's adjusting the height above ground of the
Okay.
antenna.
Okay, so you're going by lat long to determine that, and that's the only way you can make any changes?
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is the boom to mast clamp for the antenna. The masts goes through here. The hardware came loose, and the antenna, the clamp came apart, and the antenna was rocking.
Wow.
This is vertical here.
Yeah.
It was rocking this way, and as you can see, these ridges have worn from the movement.
Or it's smooth.
Yep.
So now you have new blocks?
No, I don't.
Okay.
So we'll reuse these.
Well, this was quite a project. We're going to be looking at some of the pictures here of what's going on. The color, you picked a great day for color. In fact, I thought my camera was something happening to it because everything was so heavy on the color side. And I took my eye off the camera and looked around. Yeah, it was really quite a colorful day. Now, this didn't get finished on the first day, and it got dark. How much time did you spend the next day to finish this project?
The entire day. We started at 8 in the morning and finished at 4:30 in the afternoon.
How many people left from the original party could make it then?
Only one besides, let me rephrase that. The boom lift operator and one other person came on the second day.
Fine. Okay. Crash. Did you have a lot to do, or was it just kind of to get things tidied up?
There was a lot to do. The weather on the first day, plus our inexperience, plus things being tangled, feed lines and ropes and that sort of thing, caused a huge amount of wasted time on the first day. Now on the second day, we knew much better what to do, and what we did on the second day was to attach the elements to the new antenna on the 80-foot tower. We put those on, ran the feed lines down the tower, dressed them, and we were done with that. And then we moved the boom truck to the other tower and put the old antenna on that tower. The second tower that we were working on is a freestanding tower, no guy wires, and that actually went very, very quickly.
Okay. The process now of 2 days, no one knew for sure.
Lots of clearance on the
Look
left.
at the pictures and see what's going on. How about the bottom end? You have a lot of loose ends to tie up the next day at the bottom?
Yes. The feed lines were all routed down to the bottom of both towers. The connectors were already on, but there are antenna switch boxes and rotor connections that had to be made, splices at the bottom of the tower. So I actually spent about 3 more days in total time, spread over a week, finishing up those things.
Okay. Now, I lost my train of thought here. Let me let this pause a second mentally. Now, I know what it was. What kind of coax did you use to go up the tower and come into the shack or wherever he goes? What brand and what type?
The cables coming down the tower from the top, I used from DX Engineering. It's a private label, DX213, I think is what it's called. It's RG213, which is a RG8 size coax, about the size of your little finger, about a 1/2 inch in diameter. And then at the bottom of the tower, there's a transition to 7/8 heliax in both cases. And the 7/8 heliax goes into the ham shack, where then it retransitions to smaller coax.
Wow, okay. Why can't you use 7/8 up on the top? Just too big and too heavy?
Well, hams are scroungers, and the heliax I had was not long enough to go all the way to the top, number one. Number two, heliax is very difficult to work with. 7/8 is heavy, and it doesn't bend very readily. So you obviously could not have it on an antenna that rotated. So you have to have some sort of a flexible loop at the top where the mass turns above the rotor. So I elected to have a flexible coax all the way down the tower to reach the heliax at the bottom.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Now that everything is hooked up and usable at this time, or you still got some little loose ends to do?
Still some loose ends. I'm constructing a new design antenna switch, which will allow me to select any of the antennas I have available, and there are quite a few more than the 2 Yagis. Any of the antennas will be available on either run of 7/8 that goes into the ham shack. And since I have 2 HF radios, I can select any antenna for either radio, and I can have 2 different antennas on 2 different bands simultaneously feeding 2 radios.
Well, I somehow imagine that you're going to be able to do that. I'm looking at a picture of your ham shack. It's not your average ham shack. All the monitors and the displays and the information. In my book, that's pretty damn impressive to see something like that. If somebody wanted to use your ham station, I think it looks like it would take about 4 days of training before you could figure out what to do with everything. You worked in radio before, two-way radio or something?
Well, first of all, I've been a ham since 1970, and I have studied a lot of things over the years and learned a tremendous amount. I've always worked in technology. I managed a ham radio store for a couple of years, and then I was in the commercial two-way business for 27 years. Since retired, and regarding the ham shack, it's always evolving, but the final vision, when it's completed, which will be in sometime by the end of this year, there'll be a tremendous amount of automation involved. If I'm operating a contest or simply trying to grab a new DX country, one click with the mouse will set the radio, the amplifier, and the antenna, and the beam heading for the rotor to the proper position. So it's not really that complicated. If you can click on the mouse, that's all you have to do.
Well, John, this was quite an endeavor. being there, seeing this, and we're looking at pictures of what's going on here.
Oh, there are many, many people that enjoy the hobby to the extent that I have, and I would say that my station is much more expensive, complex than most hams, but there are a lot of people that are way head and shoulders over me. So I'm in the middle of the road. And this sort of a project or the station, it doesn't happen overnight. It evolves over years. And once I became reactive in HF in about 2000, late 2000s, around 2010, late 2000, 0000, not the century. The interest and the enthusiasm grew, and I wanted to have a moderately competitive HF contest station. And of course, everybody knows about DXCC. You work and confirm 100 countries. There are 346 countries on the list. It's only possible to work 345 of them because the last one is North Korea, and there are no ham activities allowed there. But there are many, many hams that have 346 countries confirmed, and on multiple bands. Some have all 7 bands. So I'm going towards that goal. I have about 240 countries confirmed right now, and I'm hoping to get over 300 this year.
Thank you for talking to me. I hope the world enjoys the video of what you're going through and what you've done, and then for what's coming down the road. It looks like nothing's going to stand in your way.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the interview and all the work you did to produce the video.
Okay, good evening and good luck on HF. Maybe I'll find you over there. This is W0CIA Bemidji, Minnesota, talking with John, NI0K. Good night.
7-3.